In the Satipatthana Sutta, Buddha declared that this path is Ekayana. This is the only way. Eka means one and Ayana means way. So one way. The first explanation is that it is the single way that does not branch off. There are no branches in this way, so that yogi can follow this way with assurance from beginning to deliverance. And this way has to be trodden alone in practicing meditation. We are traveling in samsara journey. We are making this journey alone without companions. Yogi may be in a group. Yogi may be in a retreat. But actually, yogi are going your own way. You are alone. Nobody is with you. Nobody can give his or her concentration or wisdom to you, and you cannot give any of your concentration and wisdom to anybody else. So although yogis may be in a group, all yogis are really practicing alone. And this way is discovered by the Buddha. And we are very fortunate to follow this path that Buddha discovered. And it is the only way because it is a way that leads only to one destination to nirvana. So when you are going along this way, you will surely reach your destination. Nirvana will be the only destination you reach when you go along this way. This is the only way to reach Nirvana. There's no other ways. The Satipatthana or mindfulness way is the only way to Nirvana, the end of suffering, the destructions of all mental defilements. Nirvana is the place where there is no rebirth, no aging, no sickness, no death, and no danger. So the first benefit is Saddhana Visuddhiya. For the purifications of beings, That means for the purification of the minds of all beings. The minds of all beings are tainted with mental defilements. Their minds are contaminated by different defilements. Most of the time, their minds are not pure. They are attachment or craving, greed, hatred, anger, ignorance, pride, envy, jealousy, and so forth. When you open your eyes, you can see very clearly a lot of conflict and battle are there. So attachment defines your minds. The Satipatthana method helps to purify the minds of beings. When you practice Vipassana meditation, you do not have greed, you do not have hatred, you do not have delusion or pride or other mental defilements. All these things are absent from your mind during your practice of meditation. Because you are going along with the nature phenomena, nature phenomena are flowing continuously. And when you see the true nature of the nature phenomena, mental defilements are absent. So when you have reached the destination, then your mind will be totally free from kilesa. By going along this path, yogi will reach the highest stage of attainment and your mind will be totally pure. And by practicing Satipatthana meditation, you will overcome sorrow and lamentation. When you practice Vipassana, you try to be aware of everything that is happening to you, to notice everything that comes to you at the present moment. When you are aware of everything, when you observe everything during meditation, the mental defilements will disappear. When you reach the final stage of Arahanthood, yogi, we have overcome sorrow and lamentation together. Although yogi have reached such a stage, sorrow and lamentation will never come to you again. There are many people whose sorrows and lamentation have been overcome by the practice of Satipatthana Vipassana meditation. And by practicing Satipatthana path, you will overcome pain and grief. Pain means physical pain and grief means mental pain. When you have sat for some time, you feel pain in the body. But when you persevere in watching the pain or taking note of pain, and your concentration becomes powerful, and you can capture the pain, feeling, painful feeling very clearly, and then pain will go away, and you will have overcome that pain. So you can overcome grief through the practice of vipassana also. When you have reached the highest stage, yogi will have overcome pain and grief once and for all. And nyayasa adhikamaya, that means you will reach the noble path when you practice vipassana meditation. Noble path here means types of consciousness that appears at the moment of realization. When meditators realize the truth, which is nirvana, there arises in them a type of consciousness that is called megacita, path consciousness. It is called path consciousness because when you have reached this stage of consciousness, you can be certain to reach nirvana on this path. It surely will lead there. There are 4 stages of realization, and so there are 4 types of path consciousness. Each path consciousness eradicates some mental defilements completely, so that after reaching the 4th path consciousness, all of them are altogether eradicated. The mental defilements eradicated by path consciousness will not return to you. For reaching the noble path, for attaining this type of consciousness that can eradicate the mental defilements altogether, Satipatthana is the only way. And you will surely realize nirvana when you practice Satipatthana meditation. We can say that reaching the noble path means reaching the state of path consciousness, and realizing nirvana means reaching the state of fruition consciousness, phalacita. Immediately after the path consciousness comes the fruition consciousness. Both the path consciousness and the fruition consciousness take nirvana as their object. So they both perceive nirvana directly. Either of these 2 moments can be called moments of realizing nirvana. So 7 benefits you will gain surely when you practice meditation completely. And now you are following this path, you are practicing this path. This Satipatthana path is very simple. It requires yogis just to be mindful of all psychophysical phenomena that are manifested at the six senses. However, in the beginning, yogi cannot note every phenomena manifested. So we recommend yogis to start the practice with limited objects, just with the rising and falling of the abdomen. Because as many dedicated meditators, many yogis affirmed it is the easiest object to note among others and also ensures uniformity among the meditators. Of course, you can start with any phenomena else manifested at any of the six senses. Nothing can be wrong with it if it is obvious enough to be aware of. So you can start with the practice with the observation of seeing or hearing or smelling or tasting or touching or any part of your body like head, leg or any parts else. You can also start with mindfulness with your thoughts. If your thoughts obvious, we never mention any phenomena as a wrong object for vipassana, as long as it represents five aggregates. Rupa Khanda, aggregates of metta, vedana, khanda, aggregates of feeling, Sinya Khanda, aggregates of perception, Sankharakkhanda, aggregates of volitional activities, Vijnana Khanda, aggregates of consciousness. As long as it represents five aggregates comprising the Nama-rupa psychophysical phenomena. So we advise meditators to start their practice with the abdominal movement in which the air elements prevails in terms of motion, tightness, or pressure. So the rising and falling of the abdomen is all about air elements. One of the four primary elements. The commentaries recommend us to start vipassana with the observation of four primary elements. Patwi dhatu, earth element, apo dhatu, water element, tejo dhatu, heat element, vayu dhatu, air elements. On the other hand, we can start with observation of jhanic mental states. If you practice vipassana on the basis of samatha jhanic concentration. But the vipassana we practicing here is pure vipassana. So we are supposed to start with the 4 primary elements. Among the 4, the earth element can be experienced as hardness and softness. You can be aware many times. You touch something, you will feel hardness or softness. Yogi can start vipassana with that elements also. And fire elements is temperature, hot, cold or warm. Yogi may start with that fire elements also. And water element is wetness or fluidity. You can start with that water element also if obvious enough. In brief, yogi can observe any phenomena if obvious enough. And Visuddhimagga mentioned Yata Bhagata Vipassana Bhi Niveso. Vipassana focus on whatever obvious. According to the commentary on path of purification, Visuddhimagga, we should begin Vipassana with what is obvious and simple, but not with what unobvious and subtle. Practice of meditation is like the process of learning. You have to start with easy lessons, but not with difficult ones. In the monastic education, for example, it is impossible for students to learn Abhidhamma, Patana in early school years. How can a child begin his education with a difficult subject? The same holds true for the beginner meditators. The Buddha's Vipassana meditation is very simple. It can be just to be mindful of 4 bodily postures: going, standing, sitting, or lying. Very simple. In Satipatthana Sutta, Buddha said, Kiccantowa Kiccamiti Pajanati. When going, yogi knows I'm going. This instruction is so simple that some people doubt about whether it is the Buddha teaching. If it were not the words of the Buddha, they would have rejected it outright. Yet they wish to argue even over the Buddha's teaching and try to interpret it in their own way. They criticize that you would look awkward if you not going when going. And moreover, they said you would be aware of going just in a conventional sense, but not in an ultimate sense. They criticize like this. The passage mentioned above is exactly what the Buddha said, which needs nobody's correction. If the Buddha had intended to emphasize the ultimate phenomena, that is mind and body, then Buddha would have said like this, Kichandowa namarupanti pajanati. When going, yogi knows nama and rupa, mind and body. Buddha would have said like this. In reality, Buddha just instructed yogis, when going, yogi knows I'm going. Kichandowa kichamiti pajanati. Regarding this, the most venerable Lady Sayadaw wrote a book, Anatta Dipani. Venerable Lady Sayadaw said in this way, when going, yogi have to note every step as I go, I go. With the mind focused on the feet, not a single step should be taken without mindfulness. Here, Lady Sayadaw translated, I go, is the exact translation of the Pali sentence, Kichami, but not his own interpretation. While noting, I go, however, yogi will become correctly aware of the physical movement and the mind that generates that movement. When your mindfulness is continuous and your concentration gets strong enough, that is why yogi have to note when going, you note going in the short form instead of the full sentence, I'm going, I'm going. Similarly, yogi have to note concurrently any activities they do, like lifting the foot, moving it forward, putting it down, and so on. This is the easiest method, requiring only bare awareness. While when sitting, yogi may note sitting, according to the teaching of the Satipatthana Sutta, Nisenawa Nisenamiti Pajanati. You may note sitting. But it would be monotonous or it would be boring to note such a single object for long. As an alternative, therefore, teacher recommend you to note the rising and falling of the abdomen, which is obvious, easy to note, and not as monotonous. By noting in this way, we guarantee you can develop vipassana insight knowledge. Some beginner meditators, some people who have overheard our talks are skeptical. about whether this is the real effective way to the development of insight knowledge, they become skeptical. Their skepticism is not surprising since they have never tried this method, since they do not have any clear idea of what insight meditation is about. So they are practicing just by faith. Initially, they cannot discern namarupa, psychophysical phenomena, not to mention to see namarupa arising and disappearing, although their teachers encourage they would. So they become skeptical about the efficacy of the mindfulness meditation. This means they arrive at the crossroads, wavering, indecisive, and hesitating to follow this method. It is the doubt that forms a hindrance to the practice. As a result, they stop developing the mindfulness and they are disqualified for the abode of noble ones and have to get back to the house of common people where they are unprotected. At this moment, if they were to die with lingering attachment to sensual object, they are most likely to land in the lower states, exactly like a person who was reborn as a louse because of attachment to his properties. This is exactly like a trader who gets killed at the crossroads because he is uncertain and faced to take the right turn before too late. So if you are skeptical about the Satipatthana method and fail to practice it, then there will be no chance for you to attain any vipassana insight, let alone megaphala and nirvana. So people will remain liable to be reborn in woeful states and to suffer all kinds of woes, such as aging, sickness, and death, and so on, throughout the cycle of rebirths. That is why Buddha encouraged us to get rid of the skeptical doubt. We should clear our doubt, practice more diligently to get the real nature to overcome doubt. So doubt is the crossroad, and if you are there, note and remove the doubt immediately. There is still much to be said about the mental hindrances to enlightenment. In short, all we have to do is just to note and remove these mental hindrances as soon as they arise. In this way, our minds get purified of these mental hindrances. They are barrier to mental development, bhavana. like shutting down the gate to nirvana. For example, suppose there is a gate that is too narrow for two persons get through at the same time, and therefore when one person gets in, the other person cannot get in or out. In the same way, when wholesome consciousness arises, unwholesome consciousness cannot arise. And when unwholesome consciousness arises, wholesome consciousness cannot arise. Because consciousness, good or bad, arises one at a time, but not two or more at the same time. In the same way, when mindfulness arises, no evil thoughts can raise. When evil thoughts arise, there is no mindfulness. In this way, our minds become pure through the practice of mindfulness. When there arise hindrances, nirvana, sensual desire, ill will, sloth and torpor, restlessness and remorse and skeptical doubt, there cannot arise mindfulness or any mental development. Then the mental hindrances would become very strong and authoritative, like commanding the Dharma development to stop. Hey, Bhavana, mental development, you stop. Like commanding like this, this is how they hinder Dharma development. So long as there is mental hindrances, there is no mental purity. The mind can by no means be purified if mental hindrances often interrupt the mindfulness. So if yogi have ever practiced, yogi can understand it well. Many people do not meditate because they consider their minds are pure by means of wholesome deeds. They say, I perform charity, I observe sila, and recitations of Dhamma, and worship in Triple Gem. So my mind is pure, they say like this. If asked, why you not meditate? They would reply that their minds are pure enough. They never do anything wrong. They never do anything evil. Never think of anything destructive to other world beings. Nevertheless, they quickly realize how unruly and polluted their mind is when they take up mindfulness meditation. In this regard, at one time, a lady yogi who once practiced mindfulness under Venerable Mahasi Sayadaw, and Mahasi Sayadaw gave her the instruction as usual, that is to begin the practice by noting rising and falling of the abdomen as a home object or primary object, and every phenomena as manifested at the six sense doors. Mahasi Sayadaw gave instruction. Shortly thereafter, That yogi complained of her mental distraction. She said that at home my mind did not give any trouble, but since the day she started meditating, she had much trouble coping with unwholesome thoughts. Of course, it was simply naive of her to think that her mind was always pure at home. Then Mahasi Sayadaw encouraged that yogi in this way. Yogi, it is actually an indication that you now start to be aware of your mind. You never observe your mind at home, so you are not aware of your thoughts, good or bad, and so you think your mind is pure. Now you develop mindfulness and start to be aware of your every arising mental states. You may think of something unwholesome at one moment, but you become aware of it at the next. Without mindfulness, whether the mind gets pure or impure cannot be known. Like a kitchen cloth that gets stained so much that any more stain cannot be seen on it. Ordinary people don't care whether their thoughts are pure or impure. So their minds often get stained with sensual desire, aversion, and frustration, and so on. But they think their minds are pure because they are rarely mindful of their thoughts. Now, with development of mindfulness, they become aware of mental impurity distinctively, like a stain that manifests itself distinctively on a lily white handkerchief. In the same way, unwholesome thoughts become known instantly through the practice of mindfulness. So we will continue tomorrow. We have to stop our discourse for today. May you practice mindfulness meditation well by noting rising, falling, sitting, touching, standing, walking, stretching, bending, seeing, hearing, smelling continuously and meticulously. May all yogis be liberated from all suffering. May all yogis realize the real peace in the very near future.